Hello and welcome to Health Live at Seniors Today. We are delighted to have here with us Dr. Monika Dass, a leading psychologist. And the topic that we are going to be discussing is dealing with anxiety, loneliness, and negativity given COVID-19. Now, there are various ways I can introduce Dr. Das, but I think the best introduction would be that this is the 9th session that she is doing with us. Can I say more? But well, I must speak a little about her for those who have not interacted with her in the past. Dr. Das is a Chartered Psychologist, a Chartered Scientist, and an Associate Fellow of the British Psychological Society in the UK. Professionally, she has counselled, as per the note that I have, 12,500, but I'm sure it must be much more than that, individuals in a span of now 21 years, and has published several papers in both Indian and international journals. She is based in Aurangabad and she is associated with a school. She's a trained pianist and a vocalist from the Trinity College of Music in London. No, ma'am, we're not going to ask you to sing or play, but she's been actively involved with several musicals such as The Sound of Music, Joseph and His Amazing Technicolour Dreamcoat, and so on. As I said, she's been here with us 8 times in the past, and I think that says it all in terms of our and not in any specific order, but her popularity, our focus on issues concerning mental health that we have, and the fact that all of you have encouraged us to do this. Now, over the last few months, Dr. Das has also been conducting for us a WhatsApp-based group, which is called the Seniors Today Healthy Mind Forum. And that is, of course, only, it is not an interactive forum. It is a forum where she has been giving her advisories in the form of what to do in terms of some meditation indicators, links, etc. And the number of people has grown from the time we started, and the number of people who has not degrown since the time we started. So that's a good indicator of how it's been doing. As I said, it's not an interactive session because we didn't want people to be sending some jokes or giving their views on India's performance in the Olympics or the various paths that exist. So we just wanted to focus on people having a healthy mind. So I'm going to welcome Dr. Das for accepting our invitation once again. And how's it in Aurangabad, Kasakai?
I wish I could reply. Well, I'm going to speak in English. It's good, lovely weather, very little rain, but good. We're keeping healthy, all of us, and the numbers are low in terms of the virus, so that's another positive.
That's right. So let's get into it right away with your session and our focus on dealing with anxiety, loneliness, and negativity given COVID-19. We have not yet we're not yet experiencing the third wave, but that fear exists. So that fear exists with me for sure, and I'm sure it's there with a host of people as to how we could be bracing ourselves for the third wave and for the uncertain present and future. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, friends. I'm going to be sharing my screen, so just give me a minute, please.
That's perfect.
Okay. All right. So welcome to my 9th session. I was mildly surprised to hear that this is my 9th session with all you wonderful people. And I hope I'm able to do justice today as I have done in the past. The topic which Mr. Maheshwari wanted to discuss was basically dealing with fear and anxiety given COVID-19. And there's so much going on about the third wave and, how we are supposed to handle it and not think of it maybe and just get on with our lives. So I just done a short presentation where I just wanted to discuss a few questions and give you some pointers which would hopefully make you feel a little more positive and help you relate to whatever is going to be happening. So a definition of fear and anxiety, basically, fear relates to the unknown, relates to something which is known, something which you understand as a threat, whereas anxiety basically relates to something which is unknown, unexpected, and that's what is actually worrying many people in terms of the third wave. So in other words, fear is the result of a real threat. So it could be, say, an attack from somebody or impending danger, etc. Whereas anxiety is the result of a perceived threat or anticipation of a future threat. Fear or anxiety leads in the expression of a range of adaptive or defensive behaviors. And basically, it leads to chronic stress, which puts people at greater risk of developing mental illness in these times, particularly people who are over the age of 60, 65 and who are at home. So there are several questions which I've put and several answers which I've given, which I would like you all to go through very quickly. The first one is, what can I do to relieve stress, worry and fear during the COVID-19 pandemic? Now, we've talked about this many times, but it doesn't help for me to remind you again and again. You need to find ways to exercise. It's very important. So staying active helps you release anxiety, it relieves your stress, and it manages your moods. So if you're inclined to, go into mood swings and things, exercise is imperative for somebody like you. Now, while the gym and group classes for aerobics, etc., are basically out, you can still cycle, you can go hiking, you can walk, depending on where you live. If you're stuck at home, which many of you may be in cities like Mumbai, etc., you need to look for online exercise videos which you can follow, or online classes. I know there are many teachers who are doing online yoga, and apparently they're pretty successful. So they have a whole range of activities available online for you to do. And there are, you basically with yoga and certain other exercises where you're not using equipment, you're using your own body weight. And this is equally good. So you don't need to depend on going to the gym and using a machine, to maybe keep yourself fit. Another question is, what can I do to cope with the effects of the COVID-19 quarantine? Now, maybe many of you have gone through this. Maybe many of you have had the virus, I'm sorry. Maybe many of you have traveled and you've had to quarantine yourself. But again, as I've mentioned before, sedentary behavior and low levels of physical activity can have a very negative effect on your health, on your well-being and quality of life. So self-quarantine can also be very stressful for people, for elderly people. You're not used to being caged up in a room on your own without moving around. So any type of physical activity, any type of relaxation technique, which are very valuable tools, you need to keep going with this to help you remain calm. And this will also protect you health-wise. WHO recommends 150 minutes of moderate to intensive activity, or at least 75 minutes of vigorous to intensive physical activity a week. That's not too much. So if you can work this out somehow or the other, if you're not doing this, then you need to keep this in mind. The third question which I looked at was, what preventive measures can I take against the coronavirus disease? Now, we all know the basic things like washing your hands regularly, maybe using an alcohol-based rub, keeping a distance. Initially, it was 6 meters. They've come down to 1 to 3 meters now. But avoid people who are sneezing and coughing. Avoid touching your face. You need to cover your mouth if you're coughing and sneezing. And if you are unwell, by now, I think we all realize we need to stay home. Smoking is a big no-no because it obviously weakens your lungs. And practicing physical distancing by avoiding unnecessary travel is important. And particularly for the elderly, try and stay away from large groups of people. So if you are meeting friends, maybe 4 or 8 of you, but not more than that. Family members, it's different because you all know what you all are doing. But even with friends, try and maintain a bubble. So you're just meeting those people, and those people are not meeting others. You need to ensure that. So you'll need to figure this one out. What can I do on a daily basis to stay healthy during the COVID-19 pandemic? This is important, and I've discussed this in the WhatsApp group many a times, and I'd like to stress this again to you while we're doing this session. A regular routine is a must. You have to sleep on time. You should have your meals on time. Whatever activities you're used to during the day, it needs to be on time at that time. Don't have lunch at 2:33 in the afternoon, a very late dinner. It doesn't help you physically. So just try and maintain some, in terms of being disciplined so that physically you remain fit during this period of time. Staying socially connected is extremely important for all of you. Speaking to your loved ones, people you trust every day or as much as possible is important, whether it's through your mobiles or video calls or messaging friends. Use this time to share your feelings and to do common hobbies together. So if you have a bunch of friends who enjoy just art, for example, you can spend an afternoon just painting. And shops are open right now, so you could just pick up canvases, some paints, and have a really fun afternoon doing something like that. I've mentioned this already, so that I'm not going to go through the physical activity. Make sure that the activities you are doing keep you safe and that they're appropriate for your level of fitness. Please consult your doctor if you're not sure. Now, use household chores as a way to keep physically active. So follow an online class, which I mentioned. Tai Chi is great, by the way. I've started that. So that's something I would recommend to you. Or choose your favorite music and dance to that. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if people are laughing at you. Do it on your own. How long does it take to develop an adequate immune response after receiving the COVID-19 vaccine? Basically, it takes 2 to 3 weeks after you complete your second dose. In what conditions does COVID-19 survive the longest? Now, the coronavirus dies very quickly when it's exposed to UV light or sunlight. Basically, viruses like SARS survives longest in temperatures such as room temperature or temperatures which are slightly lower than room temperature. So where humidity levels are low, this is where it sort of springs up. How long does the virus that causes COVID-19 last on surfaces? 72 hours on plastic, 24 hours on cardboard. And basically, these viruses can last up to a long time, and you need to be very careful when you're handling bottles and things like that, particularly when you go out, plastic bottles, water bottles, etc. Why are workouts important during this phase which we're going through? Physical activity needs to be maintained as it is extremely beneficial to both body and mind. It is important for controlling diabetes and high blood pressure. So those of you who suffer from this, you need to be exercising regularly, walking, for example. Maintaining bone strength and muscle tone through exercise is important, especially as regular outdoor activity is curtailed. Now, exercise helps boost your immunity, you know this. It reduces the risk of mental health issues like depression, and you really need to keep fit. I can't stress more on this than I have done already. You can walk for short periods of time, say 10 minutes at a time. You can practice yoga. You can do interval training, whatever you want, depending on depending on your level of fitness and your age. But walking is one of the best ways to maintain fitness. Should alcohol be avoided after receiving the COVID-19 vaccine? Most experts say that there is no evidence of alcohol impairing the effectiveness of the vaccine. So maybe you could take a break of 3 or 4 days and then, have a drink or two, but just be careful on that. Can COVID-19 spread in hot and humid climates? So far, COVID-19 can transmit in all areas, including areas which are hot and humid. Regardless of the climate, you need to adopt protective measures for yourself, and particularly if you're traveling. Flights are opening up, so please take care. People who sit in the middle, make sure they're wearing their full kit, because I've heard of stories where passengers start arguing and fighting about not wanting to wear this full kit. So make sure you insist on that if you happen to be sitting on the aisle or the window side of an aircraft. And the best way, of course, is to protect yourself is to wash your hands regularly. Now, in terms of managing anxiety in this period of time, my strong suggestion is limit how often you check for updates. So don't keep going back to your television sets or radio, whatever you're listening to. Limit yourselves, just take in whatever you need to, because these sort of things fuel anxiety in you instead of, making you feel less anxious. So limit that. Focus on things which you can control. So figure out what the things you can control. You can control your own health. You can control your own mental well-being. You can control your physical well-being. You can control what you're eating. You can control who you're talking to and who you're meeting. So figure the things that you can control and focus on that, because we are going through a massive upheaval. And the talk is that this is going to go on till 2024. Now, we can't all stay stuck at home till 2024. So somehow or the other, you need to get yourself out just to get some fresh air. If you can go on a short holiday, do that. So these sort of things, it's very important to try and figure out how you can do this for your own mental well-being. This is something important. When you feel yourself getting caught up in fear of what might happen, you must try and learn to shift your focus to things you can control. So, for example, you cannot control how severe the coronavirus outbreak is in your city or town, but you can take steps to reduce your own personal risk and the risk that you may pass on to others. So this is something you can control. Plan for what you can. I've probably mentioned this in the WhatsApp group several times. It's important to plan. It's natural to be concerned about what may happen. You need to plan, and planning helps you become less anxious. So write down specific worries that you may have about the virus, which may disrupt your life. This is a very important exercise for those of you who are anxious. Make a list of all possible solutions that you can think of. And don't get hung up about trying to be perfect on every single thing, because that's impossible. So just work on making a list and what you can solve physically yourself. Focus on concrete things that you can probably change or solve, rather than trying to figure out circumstances which are beyond your control. And this is very important. After you have evaluated all the options on paper, draw up a line of action. And when you're done with it, put that book aside. Don't look at it again. It's all there in your head. And you will automatically start functioning slowly and steadily without going back to your action plan, which is in the book or in your writing pad or whatever. This is very important. Don't keep going back to redraw your action plan. How do you stop what ifs from spiraling? What if this happens? What if that happens? I mean, this goes on in our minds. Basically, relinquish your desire for control, because it's easier said than done, but you can throw yourself into a spin. And once you go into spin, you get into a panic attack. A lot of negative thoughts come into your mind, and it's very difficult to ground yourself. So you need to learn to ground yourself. And I've given you a very simple breathing technique here, which I'd like you to do right now. If you can, sit up straight, for example, bring your attention to your breath. So breathe in and breathe out and focus on your breath and your body. Focus all your attention on the here and now, noticing the sights, sounds, and smells around you and what you're feeling in your body. So let's go back again. You sit straight, bring your attention to your breath and your body. You focus all your attention on the here and now, noticing sights, sounds, smells, any little noise that's going on, and figure out how it's affecting your body. Continue to breathe slowly in and out, gently bringing your mind back to your body, and breathe every time it drifts. So every time your mind drifts, bring it back to the here and now. Breathe in and breathe out until you start feeling a state of calm, and it will happen. So this is an important exercise for you to do, particularly when you find yourself spiraling out of control or feeling, that you can't manage certain situations, or if you go into a panic attack. Now, for those of you who may be in families but are still lonely, for those of you who are on your own, you need to stay connected even if you are physically isolated. We are hardwired for connection. We are social human beings. We don't like being on our own all the time. So for your own physical health, for your own mental health, you need to be in touch with good friends, with family members who you're comfortable with and who, give you that level of comfort and that love and affection. Be in touch with the people who matter in your life. And even if you have to stay on your own, in your routine, your day-to-day routine, figure out a time when you can stay connected, whether it's on WhatsApp or, video calls, without invading other people's privacy. Now, this is also important during these times. Something else which you need to take into heed is basically emotions are contagious. So you need to be wise who you turn to for support. Be careful who you're choosing as a sounding board. Coronavirus is not the only thing that's contagious. So are emotions. And avoid discussion on the virus with people who are negative about it, who will help. You can discuss the virus, you can discuss the situation with people who are rational about it, who are level-headed, who are thoughtful in their approach, who are good listeners, for example. But the moment, and you all are wise enough to know when somebody is feeding in on negativity, move yourself gently out of the way, but don't get yourself involved in this spiral. And again, you take care of body and spirit. Be kind to yourself, maintain a routine, take time out for activities that you enjoy. Avoid self-medicating, please. Always consult your doctor. Relaxation practice is very important, and I've given you all several exercises in the past. So I'm sure you've worked on that, and hopefully it's helped you out. Helping others through this pandemic is important because it's not just about me and myself, but it's also about somebody else. So if you can help even by talking, do that. Spend that time so that you help others, pull through. And if we're talking about another 2 or 3 years of this, we need to learn how to basically hold hands and go forward together. If you can donate for causes where they need it, but do it wisely. Learn to be a calming influence on others, be kind to others, practice gratitude. This is important. Pause, breathe, and reflect the moment you start panicking. Focus on being rational. Focus on rational responses rather than irrational fears. Practice mindfulness and acceptance. Focus on asking what now rather than why is this happening? Why has God done this to us? Why has God given me this? Don't go into all that negativity. What do I do now? How do I handle the situation now? Practice patience with yourself and with others, and things will unfold slowly and steadily, and we'll win. We will win, but you need to keep healthy before that. So basically, to summarize, anxiety is an emotion that tends to seek out confirmation. While at times this can be validating, it can also intensify the emotion, leaving you feeling helpless and overwhelmed. Acknowledge your emotion with understanding and then turn your mind to other things. It is understandable that I am concerned about the current situation, and I understand that worry is not an effective way to respond. You're talking to yourself on this. Get facts, keep things in perspective, focus on what is important for you on a particular day, practice mindfulness and breathe to keep yourself calm. I want to show you a short video.
Before that, could you show?
Yes. Sorry.
There's a request from Ms. Jyoti Kapoor. If you could show her the point 6.
Question 6.
Yeah, 6. She missed
Here
that.
we are. So how long does the virus take to survive? In what conditions does the virus take longest to survive? So basically, UV light and sunlight is what we require. So if you all are in a building, get yourselves onto a terrace area, where you can absorb sunlight, and early morning, preferably, not at 11 and 12 in the afternoon. And SARS, I think SARS has started again, so we need to be careful now. And this basically survives with low humidity, when humidity is low, or when room temperatures, or within normal room temperature. So we need to be careful with that. Can I carry on? May I carry on?
Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. So I'd just like to finish with this video where this gentleman actually gives it all. He summarizes everything that we need to remember. Sorry, it's hanging. I don't know what's happened. Could we have a show of hands from the group to know who all have been on the WhatsApp group before, while we're waiting for this, Mr. Maheshwari?
Yeah, so my request is those of you who are on the WhatsApp group, please just raise your hand. There's an at the bottom of your screens or somewhere, if you are on a cell phone, there'll be a tab which, okay, let's hear this.
Okay, right.
Let's hear this and we can get that.
Okay, these are the 3 things that will actually prevent the decline of your brain once you pass 45. Number 1, hyperoxygenation. At a minimum, 3 times a week, you should be hyperoxygenating blood system.
Could you increase your volume?
My volume. Hold on.
Of this.
My volume.
No, of this.
Ah, okay.
Further right. Yeah, if you can start it again.
Right.
Okay, These are the three things that will actually prevent the decline of your brain once you pass 45. Number one, hyperoxygenation. At a minimum 3 times a week, you should be hyperoxygenating your blood system, aka some form of brisk walk or exercise to create a hyperoxygen state. The second thing is learning. It's a use it or lose it scenario. If you're not learning, your brain literally starts to divert resources to other organs and other areas of your body in order to maintain stability, homeostasis. So the more you engage in learning, the sharper your brain stays. And more importantly, the more plastic your brain becomes, because you start connecting neurons that have never been connected before. And the third thing that I discovered, which is more important than the other two combined, guess what it is? Social connections. And that's because one of the largest portions of our brain is the mammalian brain. We are social animals. Here's what's really interesting. It's not just social connections that preserve brain function. When you add this other ingredient to connection, everything skyrockets. You know what that extra special ingredient is? It's collaboration. When we feel and when we engage in collaboration with another mammal, it literally is like miracle growth for our brains, for our hormones, for all of the biochemistry that in most cases will deplete feelings of depression, anxiety, and stress, and leave us feeling full of love, connection, and energy, and positive feelings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation. I'm going to, the edited video of this session will be on the Seniors Today website on Monday. And what I'm going to do, ma'am, is if you could also send me a link to this video, because
Sure.
Audio levels were slightly down. What we'll do is we will have the video linked also to the as part of the takeaways.
I'll do that.
So some of you have sent us a message that can you add us to the WhatsApp group? Dr. Das, we were wondering whether we should say goodbye to it, but there are people who wanting more, so we're not going to let you go. We are not going to let you go.
That's fine with me. I'm here. I'm here to help, and I'm very happy doing it.
So what we'll do is those of you, I have put a link over here in the WhatsApp group, which I'm going to put again. So I'll have a colleague of mine just put the link over there. If you can try and join it over there, we will, you could do it yourself. But otherwise, you could put your phone number on the chat just now, and by end of day today, we will have you on the WhatsApp group. And I know Nishal ji that the link is invalid. Somebody else also has said the same thing. The chat link is there here. I think it should be working, but in case it's not, we'll do that. Anyway, right now you shouldn't be clicking on the link. You should be paying attention to this session. So you can do that later. Those of you who have questions, please put them here. As always, there are a few questions that have come in. The first one is from Dinesh Saxena, who says, even after taking both doses, my relative is scared to move out due to the third wave. I can tell you, Mr. Saxena, I've taken both my doses and it's been over a month since I've done that, and I can tell you even I'm scared. So don't worry. I think that fear factor exists. But over to you, Dr. Das, for your response.
No, I think the fear factor is natural. It's normal, and particularly for those of you who are living in metropolises. You see, I'm lucky. I'm out here in Aurangabad, next to the hills, and it's open air. So that fear factor doesn't exist in me. I have to be very frank. I just get on with my life every day, and I've stopped thinking about the virus, and I've stopped discussing it. Except, if we're out for dinner and suddenly the topic arises. But there's a lot more rationality now in terms of our approach, even with my friends. There's a lot more, the thought process is such that everybody is getting on with their lives rather than falling back on their fears. And the fears are going to be there, sir. It's going to be there. Only you can get yourself out of that situation. But living in a place like Bombay, where you are, everybody is sort of, you're surrounded by people. It's a crowded city. I don't know how you're going to manage, but somehow or the other, you need to get a break and take yourself out of the city every so often, even if it's to Lonavala or maybe to Khandala, just for a break of a couple of days, because that's going to rejuvenate you and that's actually going to help you carry on again. The situation may erupt anytime, they say in early September or maybe late August, we don't know. But the fact is, you still need to find solutions for yourself. And one of the ways to do this for those of you who are living in bigger cities is get out whenever you can, just for a couple of days, to refresh yourselves with your family members.
We must invite us to Aurangabad.
I would love to have all of you.
And
all of you. I genuinely mean that.
We must also talk about real estate in Aurangabad and figure. But what you've mentioned is, isn't it easier said? It's easier said that you can get out of the city and go to Lonavala or Khandala or Nasik or wherever. But it's easier said. One can try to do that. But I can tell you that having not reached senior citizenhood yet, I haven't really stepped out of the city in the last 15 months. So it's tough. It's tough doing that. And there's always this fear, especially in the Pune. And if you're talking about Mumbai, the Pune side of Mumbai, there were fears. The levels are higher. In fact, some of those levels are, those cities, those areas are still under level 3 in Maharashtra, as the government has tagged it. So, the fear factor exists. Yes, there are people who are going there. The streets of Goa are full of people from Mumbai and Delhi. But, it's I think easier said. So what does a person do who is holed up at home in a small apartment in a Mumbai or a Delhi or even a Bangalore?
You need, I don't know the answer to this, Mr. Maheshwari. All I know is that you need to get out into the fresh air, and that's what I'm trying to emphasize.
Right.
So whether it's getting out of your flat and going for a walk, whether it's going to a Marine Drive and walking on the sea face over there, fresh air is basically what you require. Fresh air and basically looking at nature. This is very important for the eyes. Not looking at buildings and not looking at people. Have you understood what I'm trying to tell you?
Of course, I know.
Yeah. So this is extremely important for all of us, for our souls, and that's what's going to help. So even if you're stuck in Mumbai and you can't get out, you need to find a way where you're able to walk somewhere, whether it's a garden, a park, whatever, just to get yourself out of the house. Staying at home is not the answer, and feeding on your fears is not the answer either. Please don't let your fears get the better of you.
Right. We have a question from Gurdeep Straw, who asks, any specific reason for not mentioning the using of masks? I feel it's the single most important and effective tool to help contain COVID-19 infections.
So you're absolutely right. I just took it for granted that we use masks. So I didn't put it in, my apologies. But yes, you have to use your mask. That's your, basically that's your vaccine, if you want to put it, and that's what's going to help you protect yourself.
Right. Mask is mustest. We have a question from KV Lakshmina who says, when I go for my daily walks, I'm supposed to be masked. Brisk walking of 6+ kilometers per hour. It's a huge discomfort to be doing with closed nose and continue to breathe back what you exhale. The result is tiredness during the walk. With a good distance in a park, is it okay to keep the mask below my nose?
You need to. Please don't exercise, walk, do any form of any major activity with your mask on. In fact, it's dangerous. So as long as you are a little spread out in terms of not being too close to people, you can even remove your mask and put it into your pocket and walk comfortably. But don't walk with your mask on. It's impossible. Even climbing stairs is a problem. So just be very, very careful with this masking business.
My recommendation to you is that you must seek medical opinion in case you are feeling suffocated, etc., because this is a medical issue that exists. So please take medical advice if you are doing that. And of course, ensure that there is enough distance between you and the person who is in front of you or behind you. That's very important. At the end of the day, in cities like Bangalore, where you are, Mr. Lakshman, the parks, I'm sure, are also very crowded. We have a few more questions which I'm going to ask. This question is from an anonymous attendee who says that, Dr. Das, we are getting into the third wave, and you have raised a fair number of points that exist, but it is impossible to be taking so much care on a day-to-day basis in the house. Even if I take care, my children and my grandchildren are not careful enough. What do I do?
Beyond a point, some form of exposure is important, and I feel very strongly about this. I'm not speaking from a medical point of view. I'm basically speaking from a rational point of view. Some form of exposure in terms of you don't need to be surrounded by people who have the virus. I'm not saying that at all. But exposure is important to build your immunity. Let's face this logically. So if you are in very pure environments all the time, you are likely to catch the virus quicker and faster than, say, XYZ person who has not taken care of certain things, So it's impossible in a family to be dictating terms, because you will end up being paranoid and you will actually drive them up the wall. If you keep saying you've not done this, you've not washed your hands, you've not, whatever stuff goes on. So rather than haranguing and going on reminding family members, when kids are leaving, your grandkids are leaving, just say, remember your mask, remember to wash your hands. And that's it, just once a day. Not every time you meet them. So once a day, just give them these 2 lines: remember your mask, remember to keep a distance, and the third one is remember to wash your hands. So if they can keep these 3 things in mind, and remember they're young kids, how can you expect them to remember this all the time, every time, day in and day out? They've spent enough of time at home for the last 17, 18 months. So just a reminder in the morning, and that's it. Don't go by telling them every 20 minutes or, whenever you meet them that you've not done this. Forget that. And forget about who is not doing what in the house. That's very important. Because if you get into that spiral, which I was talking about, you will get into a spiral of negativity, and then there's no end to that.
Right. Dr. Das, we've already, it's already 5:45. We'll ask a few questions, fair number of questions that come in. There is one from Krishan Kalsi, who says, will you talk about grief as well, Dr. Das? Fear and anxiety take longer to go through the process of grief.
Yeah. Grieving is important. Grieving is natural. And if you've lost a loved one or a very close friend, you need to sit and cry, frankly. You need to shed those tears. But the saddest part is that we have to move on. Through the second wave, I've lost friends, young friends, people who have, barely reached 35 or 36. So grieving is important, and it's a natural process, and you have to go through it naturally. But you have to come out stronger and better for it. And finally, at the end of the day, families have to move on, and you have to move on. You notice, I'm not talking about being callous. I'm not talking about being uncaring. But those souls who have left us would want us to get on with our lives. Always remember that. And when you grieve for somebody, in Hinduism, I don't know about, and probably in other faiths also, they say that you're keeping the soul back. So instead of that, grieve and let go so that that person can move forward into another life and into something else that's meant for them. So crying on a shoulder of a good friend or a family member is absolutely normal, and you need to go through that, to answer your question in short.
Great. Thank you. We have, can I take one more question, if you don't mind? We will have, so Satish Kalia says something else. For seniors, staying alone entails tension and worries. Mental tensions and worries always overtake you. It's more so when you're doing some jobs mechanically. How to get over these?
So I've said a lot in my slides already. Now the problem with mental tensions is you have to define your tension and what is bothering you. If it's something that's not COVID related, and if it's something that you can control, whether it's related to relationships or finances or what have you, normal worries that may occur in all our lives. You need to find solutions, and the only way you can find a solution is to sit down, have a notebook in hand, and think rationally what the next step is. The moment you are able to go forward, even if it's a small step, if you've taken one baby step forward, that sense of relief comes in automatically. Your mind starts working faster and it's sharper. And then suddenly solutions start appearing. Now, one other thing which I've discovered, and I think many of you would have also discovered, when you have a problem, anything that's bothering you, don't keep thinking about it. Shelve it. Shelve it meaning stop thinking about it. So it's there at the back of your mind. You're not concentrating on it. Believe you me, somehow or the other, at some point, whether it's a couple of days or whatever it takes, solutions appear. And it happens for all of us. This is just a natural fact of life. Solutions may not be the kind of solutions you want or you're seeking, but solutions appear. So it's very important not to keep mulling over things which are worrying you too much. Shelve it, get on to something which makes you happy. You'll start finding solutions automatically. So the main thing is get a hold on yourself in terms of what's happening in the mind. Very important. So COVID-19 is not the only factor. There are lots of these things. Talking to somebody helps, by the way, a good friend. Sometimes that you get this eureka moment when you're talking to somebody. So solutions appear in all kinds of forms. It could be through advice. It could be somebody telling you a story. I don't know. It could be any which way, but a solution comes. It does come.
Dr. Das, we're talking about happiness, etc. A piece of happy news to everybody over here is that Neeraj Chopra has won India's first gold at these Olympics in the javelin throw, and so our first gold, we now have a medals tally of 7. India has come up from 66 to 47. So
Amazing.
that's a piece of happy news
That's amazing.
to celebrate, and claps to the Indian team and to all of us over here, because it's taken a long time, and there's no other joy than India doing well at the Olympics. No better joy. So thank you once again, Dr. Das, for this, for being here. And as you can see,
pleasure.
The number of people who want the WhatsApp group to continue is rising. So we will do that. Some people did raise their hands, and what we'll perhaps do, I was just thinking about it, is perhaps one day of the week we could have an open house and people could, also put their points.
Yeah, I think that's very important, sir, because I would like to get feedback, and maybe sometimes other people have some terrific ideas which they would like to share, on a group. So let's do that.
Perhaps we can do that, once a week, and do that. As long as people don't, misuse the opportunity and send us, stuff that is not relevant. But any which way is something that we're going to try. The idea that was, that came up was fantastic, and I'm really glad that it has worked so well. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dr. Das, once again.